Come, join me by the candlelight. Hey guys, and welcome back. Tonight, you will be listening to parts 4, 5, and 6. Welcome and enjoy. If you are heading west on State Highway 15 out towards Dilkin, you come to a stretch of road that goes into a small valley. I remember going down this road in my youth. If you looked at the horizon, it would seem as if the road kept going. Then suddenly your car would be pulled down by gravity as you followed the road. It would always give me butterflies when we would go down the slope. When I heard the story about this road, it made my stomach feel different. A man was driving home one night. It was very late. It was a drive that he had done before, so he wasn't too bothered by it. When you are driving on the reservation, sometimes there isn't any way to keep cattle from getting on the road. No fences mean that you need to be extra aware. I was always told to look for the black horse. If you see a black horse, then you'll be able to see anything that may wander onto the path of your vehicle. So, this man is driving home, not paying too much attention. He drives down the slope, but when he gets to the bottom of the valley, he sees it, but doesn't have enough time to react. Suddenly, a horse comes out of the darkness. He slams on his brakes, but he is unable to stop and hits the horse with his truck. The impact was not enough to deploy the airbags, but the man was tossed around quite a bit by the incident. He turns on his emergency lights and gets out of the car to assess the damage. The front of the car was crumpled and one of the headlights was destroyed. He cursed out loud. This was the worst place to have an accident, and he didn't have a signal to phone for help. He then remembered the horse. The man went into the cab of his truck and got a small keychain flashlight. He started shining around looking for the wounded animal. He heard noises, but they didn't sound like a horse. He was positive that what he hit was a horse. As he approached the sounds, he could see the animal's fur moving from its ragged breathing. As he got closer, he began to realize what it was. There was a naked elderly woman, wrapped in a large pelt. She was moaning from pain. The man stopped dead in his tracks and got weak from fear. He stumbled back to his truck, and although it suffered plenty of damage, he was able to get it started and drove off. Once he was able to get a signal, he called the authorities. An ambulance drove out there and recovered the woman. She was driven to a local healthcare facility. Due to the fact that many of the healthcare staff were Navajo, no one wanted to touch the woman. The woman was known in the community, and she was thought to be bedridden. This was shocking because she was so far from home, and the state that she was in was immensely off-putting. She still had on her attire when she arrived at the hospital. The nurses called her family to come in. When her family got there, they removed her pelt and her jewelry. The staff were very frightened, but there were some non-Navajo staff that still provided her with care. The elderly woman had only bumps and scrapes. Other than that, she seemed just fine. She was able to get up and walk around that same evening. She went home with her family that night, but after a couple of days, she had passed. In the Navajo culture, if you find out who a Skinwalker is, you have the power to destroy them. After the community around Indian Wells found out who, or more fittingly, what this woman was, it was far for certain that her time was at an end. In the traditional Navajo way, Skinwalkers are seen as witches, but they weren't always seen that way. My late grandmother, who was a medicine woman, practiced the blessings way, told me of the origins of the Skinwalker. Being a Skinwalker wasn't always seen as a bad thing. In fact, they were seen as people with amazing gifts. They could change into the form of any animal, run vast distances very quickly, mimic people's voices, and some were known to use magic. During colonization, Skinwalkers were used to relay messages between war camps and spy on the enemy without being detected. Having the Skinwalker abilities was a gift, When we lost, the good of the community took a backseat and people began to focus on themselves. Instead of sharing what you had, people began to look after their own families, claiming property and livestock. And there were people that got the short end of the stick. Jealousy is a terrible thing. People became jealous of one another, wanting more fortunate people to lose what they had. They looked to skinwalkers who had otherworldly powers to do their bidding. Now, being a skinwalker is not a gift. You condemn yourself to a life of unhappiness and anger. In order to become a skinwalker, you must sacrifice someone that you love very much. This shows that you are indeed committed to depravity. The interesting thing is that you could have met a skinwalker and not even know it. They are people like you or me that have chosen a path in which they will hurt others. Navajos want to separate themselves from death of any kind. We burn clothing and personal items of deceased relatives, and it is very taboo to keep anything that belongs to the dead. Keeping such items can make a person sick or suffer horrible events in their life. However, skinwalkers surround themselves with death. Skinwalkers have been known to grave rob and search through people's garbage. They use bones and hair from the dead and victims' personal items to create bundles. They place these bundles near a person's home, and bad luck will fall upon the person. In her younger days, my sister was very much interested in the rodeo scene. My family actually has a pretty impressive legacy when it comes to the sport. My sisters didn't compete, but had plenty of friends and family that would go and watch. My two sisters would travel around the Southwest following the rodeo circuit. The cowboy lifestyle isn't always glamorous. It can be filled with alcoholism, drugs, and depression. Unfortunately, this took hold of my sister and she got in trouble with the law. My sister was looking at jail time, and the family was very concerned about what might happen to her. This was very out of the ordinary for her. My mother went to a local medicine man, and they talked about next steps. They decided to have a ceremony for my oldest sister. A few days had passed, and it was time for the ceremony. The medicine man and his wife showed up a little past dusk. They came into our house, and we served them the food we had prepared. Everyone chatted for a bit, and when we finished eating and cleaned up, it was time to start. Everyone sat down in the living room in a large circle. The medicine man sat on the far west side of the room. My oldest sister sat to his left. In the middle of the circle was a large pile of sand that was smoothed out on the top. My uncles got hot coals from the fire and placed them on the sand. The medicine man prayed in Navajo and sang blessing songs. This went on into the night. At the height of the ceremony, the medicine man turned to my oldest sister and told her that they would have to go outside and pray in the darkness. He told her not to look around as he is singing. He told her to keep her eyes on him. The medicine man, my sister, and my uncle went outside. The medicine man turned around and began singing into the darkness. My sister was watching him sing, trying to keep her focus only on him. Then she heard it, off in the distance. She heard someone whistle. This made her feel sick to her stomach. Our elders tell us about our culture's taboos starting at a young age. One of the biggest things that they stress is to never whistle at night. They tell us only the dead whistle at night. So, when my sister heard whistling out in the darkness, fear gripped her heart. She was so scared that tears began to well up in her eyes. The whistling got louder and louder, as if whatever it was moving closer and closer. My uncle was also outside during the prayer. He admits that he was scared too, but he wanted to be there for my sister. What my uncle saw was even more miraculous. He claims that as the medicine man sang, a bundle came from up above. The eagle feathers that the medicine man was holding opened up like a hand. The bundle gently floated down into the feathers, and the feathers closed around the bundle. The medicine man stopped singing, and the group went back into the house. My sister stumbled in, clearly shaken from the experience. The medicine man could see how my sister was. She asked him what was whistling. He told her that it was a skinwalker, and that he was trying to call the bundle back to it. We gathered around to see what was in the bundle. The medicine man opened up what looked to be a leather pouch. Inside of the pouch was a bone about 1 inch wide and 3 inches long. Upon closer inspection, the bone was hollowed out and more items were shoved inside of the bone, held in place with twigs and dirt. He dissected the bone to find hair pieces and pieces of a shirt, both belonging to my sister, and a very tiny drawing of a woman behind bars. Whatever was calling out to this bundle had very ill intentions for my sister. Fortunately, after the ceremony, all of my sister's charges were dismissed. I asked my sister what they did with the bundle, and she said that she wasn't really sure. She says that she vividly remembers being very scared when they were outside singing. My sister controls her emotions very well, and so I can't even begin to fathom how scared she must have felt in that moment. Personally, I find it hard to believe that these events are merely coincidental.